walks of life in here. You know, every race, age, weight, gender. And it doesn't take as much as people think to alter your ability to function correctly. Back in August of 2007, I had a friend that I knew real well. It was on August the 2nd at about 10 o'clock is when he went out with a girl that he had only gone out with once before. Well, he met her, and they went to a little, it was a restaurant called Busy Bee. I don't know if y'all have heard of that, but it's in Texas. There's one in Texas City, and he met her and went there. And on at about, I don't know, I want to say 10, 11 o'clock or so, they left there and they went to a sports bar and right off the exit in 2004 called Marguerite's. And it's Dillon's now, but it used to be Marguerite's. Well, they went in there, had a couple of drinks, and left. Well, they went to a hotel, and he woke up at about 5:50 in the morning and was headed down in 2004 on his way to work. You know, he never made it that day. He got in a head-on collision, and you know, he had some severe head injuries. His brain was just completely messed up. His shoulders were dislocated, a broke arm, punctured lung, broke ribs. His knees were messed up, broke nose, and his mom almost didn't recognize him when he got to the hospital. Well, he was life-flighted, and he was in a coma for about 14 days. When he got out of his coma and started, you know, just waking up out of it, you know, he didn't know what was going on. He grabbed his catheter, pulled it out, grabbed his IV, pulled it out, tried to get out of bed. I mean, but he was not able to walk, so he just went face down on the ground. And they put him back into a coma for a little while longer, and was monitoring the pressure on his brain because his brain was swelling, and they really weren't expecting him to live anyway. Well, he pulled through it anyway. They brought him real slow out of the coma, and he came out of it, and they still had him heavily medicated by the time he went home to his stepmom and dad's house. Well, he got there, and you know, when he figured out the medications he was taking, he's never done a drug in his life. Well, he said, "No more. I'll just deal with the pain," and still wasn't within his right mind. Well, he had started getting his senses back again, and he asked his stepmom. He said, "What happened?" You know, she said, "Well, you were in a bad wreck." He said, "You know, I had a good heart." He said, "Was anybody hurt? Besides me, was anybody hurt?" She said, "Yeah, there was. There was a few people hurt." And he said, "Well, I want to go see them." You know, who was it? You know, he just wanted to make sure everybody was okay. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know that anything about the wreck. He just wanted to make sure everybody was all right first. Well, she said, "Well, it's not possible. They're still in the hospital, and there's somebody still in the hospital." He said, "Well, why can't I go see him?" He said, "Because you're accused of causing that wreck." And he said, "What do you mean?" Well, stepmom kind of told him the story, you know, that there was 2 people that died in this wreck and a little boy that was in the hospital, and they weren't sure if he was going to pull through. Well, he asked, "Well, who was it that died?" He wanted to know, you know, he had all these questions. I mean, he just wakes up one day, don't remember anything that happened many, many weeks before his wreck, and he wakes up and, you know, he wants to know. Well, the stepmom told him, well, there was a little girl that was killed in that wreck also. And a 22-year-old man that was the little girl's dad. And, you know, she went on to tell him, you know, you're accused of intoxication manslaughter, and, you know, you got a lot of stuff ahead of you. So he went downstairs and he pulled out a .38 revolver and stuck it to his head. And probably would have pulled that trigger, but his daughter called. And, you know, sometimes I wish I'd pulled that trigger. Because everything leading up to my day today has never been easy. 13 months later, You know, I was at trial, intoxication, manslaughter, and I was found guilty. I had a jury sentence, jury verdict, you know, jury trial, and a jury sentencing. And the jury found me guilty, and you know, I saw it was almost like a circus with the courts. Things going back and forth, people, you know, in and out. It was crazy. You know, the jury was pretty sympathetic because, you know, you kill a man and his daughter, and he's got a child who's now paraplegic for the rest of their life. And the jury gave me 2 years. You know, and I thought, you know, of course, I don't remember being drunk. I wasn't an alcoholic. You know, I had everything in the world going for me because I was a project manager for one of the world's largest heavy lifting transport companies. I was with that company for several years and traveled all over the United States. Had everything I wanted. I had the $60,000 truck. I had the $80,000 offshore boat. I had the lake house. You know, I had everything I ever could ask for. And it was just like that. I lost everything I owned. You know, when they sentenced me, I still couldn't believe it. You know, I was not a raging alcoholic. I wasn't someone who went out all the time and stayed out all night drinking and driving around. You know, I was pretty much against drinking and driving myself. And not to say that I never did it, because anytime you go to a restaurant, you have a drink, and you drive home, you know, that's still considered drinking and driving. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But, you know, I appealed my sentence, and the judge stacked my sentences on top of each other, so I had to serve 4 years total. And I wasn't eligible for parole because the jury found my truck as a deadly weapon, you know, which still to this day boggles my mind on how, you know, you can have an accident and then it's considered a deadly weapon. I still don't know how it works, but, you know, it's not me to decide how that law works. So I had to do 4 years day for day. And everybody said, oh, that's a walk in the park. Well, when you first go in, your mom writes you all the time, your sister writes you all the time, your family, your friends, they're all writing you. But after several months, you know, that seems to be going away. Because after about, I don't know, 18 months, I wasn't getting a letter at all. I was having to beg people to write me because you're sitting there in a wall, 4 walls around you all the time. You don't know what's going on outside. You have no idea what is happening with your family, your kids, your anything. You know, it's just completely blank. I mean, time stops from the day you go in there. They drag you in there. You know, you're on a bus with chains wrapped around your arms and your legs. You take little steps, and when you get in, they take the chains off. They strip you down butt naked. They run you through like cattle through a line. They shave your head, make you dry shave your beard off, give you a pair of boxers and a little jumpsuit, put you in a cage. You're in this cage. All the yelling, the hollering, the screaming. You know, there's people in there that's been in there 5, 6, 7 times. They know the routine. So, you know, and I'm scared to death, not knowing what is about to happen. So, you know, I just always kept my mouth shut. I stayed real low key. And, you know, it's 4 years. I was on 8 different units. They just kept transferring me around. And some of the people in there would tell me, well, the reason you're getting transferred is because you're on appeal and they're trying to make you lose your paperwork. And they said, if you got any kind of case, then that's what happens. Well, I lost a lot of my stuff from traveling around. You know, they don't care about your belongings. They don't really care if it gets lost, gets stepped on, water gets all over. They don't care about anything. So you know, I end up on a unit in Cleveland, Texas. One of the last ones I was on, out of 170,000 people that was in prison. I qualified for an application process for a program called the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. I filled out the application. Out of the 500 that qualified, out of that 170,000 people, only 40, I think it was 45 people were going to be chosen to take this course. And I was chosen, and it was really good because that was the closest thing to being in the free world as you could possibly be while you're in prison. I want to consider myself a little fortunate for that, you know. It was a tough course. They tried to stuff an MBA in you in about, I think it was 12 weeks. You know, it was pretty tough. I didn't graduate because if I'd have chosen to graduate, I'd have had to go to a halfway house for 6 months after I discharged my sentence. I have a good family, you know. They weren't writing me a whole lot. They're still a good family. I knew they were out there. So I chose not to graduate and had to get myself kicked out of the program. You just can't walk out. You got to get kicked out. So I did some stuff to make me get kicked out. You know, I'm not going to go into the embarrassment of what I did, but, you know, I got kicked out of the program, and I think it was 4 months left before I discharged my sentence. And if you get in that program, you know, anybody that's in prison that gets in that program are almost guaranteed parole because they have such a low recidivism rate with people that's been in there. That's not why I was in it. I was in there because I didn't want to waste my time the whole time I was in prison. I did a lot of studying while I was in there on a lot of different things. But when I discharged, they take you to this Huntsville unit. Some people call it the walls. You know, while I'm sitting in that wall the last 3 days, I discharged on Monday, so Friday, I got 3 days before I walk out. And a lot of time to reflect on the last 4 years I was in there, seeing people beat up, heads stomped on, stabbed in the face with pencils, hearing people raped, listening to people just getting the total tar beat out of them everywhere you go. And if you walk out of there with all your teeth, you're very, very lucky, very fortunate. Thank God I did, because the things I've seen in there, the guards have no sympathy for anybody in there. They yell at you, scream at you, the door's slamming. They come in there and wreck your stuff on purpose just because you looked at them funny. You know, you don't know who you're going to be in a cell with. And believe me, there's some weird people out there, some real weird people. The first unit I got shipped to after I left the holiday unit was the walls, or not the walls, but the Gore unit. The Gore unit is well known because it's it has the most critical sex offender program for the most high-risk sex offenders. And I'm going to this unit thinking, wow, this is not where I really intended on spending my time. And it was okay, though, because they fed better than anybody else in the whole unit. And you don't eat very well while you're in there. And they kept the treatment program separate from the other people. But, you know, the people that are in there have never been to the unit. All the rumors that fly around, they say, oh, no, you don't want to go there. But, you know, I worked in maintenance, so they needed people that weren't sex offenders to be able to work in maintenance because you're working around free will women. I say work in maintenance, you work in there, you work your tail off, you don't get a paycheck. You don't get anything. You know, you got to depend on people out in the real world to send you money for commissary just so you can afford to buy pepper, salt, any kind of seasoning, anything for your food because it's so bland. I mean, it's like taking a ramen noodle out of a pack and just eating the noodles. It's sickening. You know, you ever eaten a pork chop without pepper and salt? Not very good. You know, just throw it in a pan and fry it. That's about pretty much what it's going to be without the oil to fry it with. That's about what you eat. Well, anyway, you know, the Gore unit was okay. I left there and I went to a private unit after that. Once you're in a private unit, you know, most private units aren't as good as the one I went to. It had air conditioning. I thought I was at the Holiday Inn because the Gore unit during the summertime, it was over 100 degrees in that dorm I was in. At the Holiday unit, when I first went in there, they come in there and they shot the roof 115 degrees. You go to jail if you treat a dog like that. Yet you're in there with 108 people in a room that's nothing more than a metal building with a bunch of bunks in it and brick walls, and it's hot. They got one fan above each doorway going into the showers where the TV's right next to it, so Got people sitting there watching TV with a shower right underneath you with no shower curtains. You know, it's not a nice place to be. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But anyway, when I got to the Walls unit, after I went back and thought about everything that I've been through, all the horrible things I've seen, it still didn't take away the fact that there was a family that's been ripped apart by a bad decision I made. You know, there was in that whole group of people, there was an uncle, a sister, a brother, a niece, a nephew, a daughter, a son, and everybody that it affected also. You know, I was sitting there at trial, and the kid's grandmother got up there and told me, she said, you know, from now on, I don't look at you by your name. Your name is now murderer. That's pretty tough to swallow there. You know, it's real tough because I didn't go out and intentionally kill anybody. You know, I didn't go out and have it on my mind, I'm going to go out and run over somebody or hit somebody head on. You know, I went out and had a couple of drinks. And to this day, I still don't know how there was still alcohol in my system. Not at 5:30 in the morning. You know, it doesn't just affect you that night. Alcohol, it takes a while for it to come out. I don't know how many a couple of drinks were, but I was told I drank Dr. Pepper also, and during that time I was at the bar, and I do that a lot. You know, if I was at a bar, I would drink a beer or two, and then I'd drink Dr. Pepper till I wouldn't feel the buzz anymore. I don't like to not have control of my functions. Well, but it happened, you know. They said I had a 0.104 alcohol in my system. I'm telling you guys, I've done the math. I think I've become an expert on when alcohol comes out of your system, how much your liver can process by your body weight, your height, your gender. I've never been able to add it up, but you know that it didn't matter to that little boy, you know, who was walking around in a wheelchair or rolling around in a wheelchair. I got to watch my son when I got out of prison. I got to watch my son play baseball in college. I got to watch my daughter cheer. So that family is never going to get to do. They're never going to get to watch their daughter. You know, they're never going to get to see their son walk across the stage and get his diploma. You know, I took that away from them. I've got to live with it every single day. You know, when they opened up what they call the Golden Gate at the Walls unit, just a big set of brass gates is all it is. Everybody calls it the Golden Gate, going through the Golden Gate. But the only people that get to go through them gates are the people who discharge their sentence. They have to discharge their sentence day to day to walk through them gates. If you get parole, they let you out of a different area because you got to go see the parole officer, and they can tell you where you got to go to pay your money and stuff like that. Me, I was walking out of them gates. I was ready to run out of those gates. Everybody walked out, you know, their pants sagging, they're hanging out and talking at the corner of the sidewalk there. Me, I straight across the road. I was getting as far away as I could. I knew my mom and my sister were there somewhere, but I was going across, and I saw the parking lot that they said they would be in. So I go across, and I see my mom and my sister, and they're watching everybody else. They didn't even see me beeline out of there. They're watching all these other guys and looking to see where I was at. And I pretty much walked right up on them, and it surprised them, you know. Oh my God, there you are, you know. Give them a hug, gave my mom a kiss, and I sent my sister a letter and asked her to bring me another change of clothes because anything I had with me, I was leaving there. I wasn't taking anything. That prison life was nothing that I ever wanted to see again, never wanted to have anything to do with. So we jumped in my sister's car, and before that happened, you know, they gave me my $400 that I saved up over 4 years on commissary. And then when you're walking out, they hand you a $100 check for discharging your sentence and tell you, we'll see you soon. And you'll see me. I'm done with this. This is wasn't my life before. It's not my life now. So I took that money after I got in my sister's car, and I changed clothes, and I threw my clothes right in the trash can at the closest store. And I went in that store. Probably the dumbest thing I did was buy me a can of snuff and a Red Bull. There's tobacco in prison. It's all over the place. But it's the cheapest tobacco you can get. And I'm not sure if it was tobacco and the Red Bull that caused me to throw up all the way home, or my nerves of not knowing what was going to happen. I've lost everything I had. I didn't have nothing left. I walked out with the clothes on my back. That was it. It was $500. To see, for that little boy that got injured, I didn't get a 2-year sentence for him. I got a 10-year probation sentence on top of that prison sentence. So I knew when I got out, I had 10 years of probation to do. I looked at all my paperwork. I had 5 pages of conditions I had to complete. And one of them was putting a scrim monitor on my leg. And what that does, it tests the alcohol in your sweat. So if you drink a beer, they know immediately when you drink that beer, because it downloads at a certain time every night. You got to be home when it downloads. I wasn't worried about the alcohol. I can go without the alcohol. I wasn't that much wanting it in the first place. But to put that scrim monitor on your leg, that's $360. So I had $140 left after that $360, probably about $130 after that Red Bull and can of snuff. And I went and put that on my leg and didn't know where I was going to stay and what I was going to do. My sister let me stay with her for a few days, and she actually told me that I could stay really long as I needed to get back on my feet. It didn't take me long because I had a job when I got out. I had a job before I got released because I already wrote some letters to some people I knew, and one of very few people who do the type of rigging engineering that in the field. So there's not a real big market of people that are out there trying to get those jobs. Well, I went to work for a company in Pasadena, and I drove my brother-in-law's truck for a little while because it was crazy. I walked out of prison, my driver's license was still valid. And to me, I couldn't understand it. I was very fortunate that my driver's license never got suspended. Even after my wreck, while I was waiting to go to trial, my driver's license was never suspended. I had, they took it, when they cut my clothes off of me and everything for the life of me. Well, they took my wallet. I never got the driver's license back, but I just went down and filed for a new one and got my driver's license. It was never suspended. But so I borrowed my brother-in-law's truck, and that got me back and forth to work until I made a couple of paychecks, and then I had to get out of my sister's house. I was old enough. I didn't need to live with family anymore. So I got me an apartment, and that was pretty tough in itself because now I got a felony conviction. And trying to find an apartment that'll let somebody live there with a felony conviction isn't easy. It took me several to go to, but I had a friend who was actually the manager of the apartments, and she said, "Yeah, it's okay." And I didn't know she'd worked there until after I'd already went in there to look at the apartment. And of course, I didn't tell them at first that I had a felony either. Just nice looking at something else besides 4 walls. And so I went and moved into this apartment with no furniture. Boy, but I was happy. I slept on the floor, because if y'all have ever slept on one of them mats inside a prison cell, yeah, that floor is a lot more comfortable in the apartment than it is on that steel, piece of foam. Well, my next check bought me some furniture. I made pretty good money. I got a real big bonus because when I first went to work there, I knew a lot of people in the industry, so I just needed to get my feet on the ground, and I knew how to work the field. But I got a pretty good bonus, and went out and bought me a truck. And I didn't pay cash for it. I financed it, at 18% because my 800 credit score went down to less than a 525 when I walked out of there because everything I had got repossessed. Well, so my my expensive truck. You know, I paid on it for a while, and I went and got me a secured credit card in order just to build my credit back up. Well, and that was pretty tough too. I finally got it to where I need it right now, and you know, I got on my feet more or less. And the reason I'm telling you that is because no matter what y'all are going through, y'all can recover from this. Because if I can do it, after everything I've been through, it's pretty easy, because I don't know what y'all spent on y'all's lawyer bills and all y'all stuff so far, and how much y'all are going to spend in the end. It's nothing compared to the $220,000 out of pocket that I spent. Because I had 4 attorneys. I had a civil attorney because I was being sued for over $30 million. And so my insurance company was, when I say sued, I was in a company truck when I got in that wreck. So I was part of that big lawsuit. So I had the insurance company have an attorney to represent me. Well, I had to hire another attorney just to make sure he did what he needed to do to keep from messing something up in my criminal trial. Because those 2 attorneys that I had over there recommended that I hire this attorney to watch this attorney, so I got everybody watching everybody and just taking my money. It's going, you know, I might as well just shovel it to them, because every time I turned around, it was $10,000 here, $15,000 there, $30,000 here. Hey, we need $50,000 up front to do this, you know, and $10,000 for to have an expert witness get on the stand and testify that never got up there and testified. So, you know, but all that money was gone, because once they put the handcuffs on me, my lawyers were gone. You know, I never heard from them again. No matter how much I needed from them, I wanted all my stuff. They waited 2 years to send it to me, so I couldn't file on them, and it was a big mess. I mean, it was something else. But after I got back on my feet and had the job, my boss told me, said, "Hey, I need you to go into Marathon in Texas City." I said, "Okay, you've been there 1,000 times before. I can go in there again." Well, I said, "Let me go get all my credentials right." And I had to take a decent background check. They didn't have them before I went in. Well, I go in, give my social security number, give them all my information, and now it's a waiting game. You know, a few days later, they come back and said, "Hey, you didn't pass a decent background check. So it's either quit or get fired." So I chose to quit, because I've never been fired before. So I left there and went to work for another company. And this time I was in sales and in the rigging industry. And same thing, here comes Marathon again, coming to haunt me. They want me to go back into Marathon. So either quit or get fired, you know. So I quit. I started my own business, and thank God my business is actually doing decent enough to keep my head out of water. But not everybody's that lucky, because I've helped some guys that got out of prison. I helped him come in, and I paid for a guy's clothes when he got out. I paid for his halfway house for, I think it was 3 months. I helped him get a truck, try to get him on his feet. There's a guy that I knew in there. I didn't know him real well, but I knew who he was. He seemed like a decent guy to me. I give a shirt off my back for somebody that's a decent person. Well, I got him a job with a friend of mine. It was actually my sponsor for AA, you know, because that was part of my probation conditions, was I had to go to AA every week. I had to have a sponsor. I had to work the 12 steps. Well, I talked to my sponsor. I said, "Hey, I know a guy, and he owns a business in Baytown. And he said, I'll hire him." So I got this guy a free ride, and I got him everything he needed to get back on his feet. My buddy come to me and he said, "Hey," he said, we called the guy Shorty, because, I mean, he was short. Well, he said, "Hey, something's wrong with Shorty." He said, "He's not doing the things he needs to do, and I think he's using drugs." I said, "Well, drug test him." I said, "Using drugs? Fine." I said, "Plain and simple, he should have learned. He just spent a lot of time in jail over meth." And I said, "He should have learned." Well, sure enough, he goes to drug test, and he said, "I can't pass it." So he fired him. Next thing you know, the guy's back in prison again. You know, over, you know, the same thing they were in there for. So it's a cycle. Once you get in it, it's hard to get out of it if you don't have the right resources, and they don't supply you the resources when you're in there to get out and stay out. And people don't realize that if you don't have a family that's there to support you and stick behind you 100%, then it's tough. I know, because my family, they don't have anything to do with me anymore. And it was tough. Let me tell you how tough it was. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. Me and my brothers don't talk anymore. The only people I talk to is my mom about 5 or 6 times a year when a hurricane comes through, on my birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day. Now, I talk to my dad, you know, when I call him, he don't call me like he used to. You know why? Because I'm a convicted felon. You know, people look at you different, a whole lot different. The people who look at me the most different than anybody else is that family. That's the hardest part about this, is knowing that I can never get forgiveness from them. Not that I would give somebody forgiveness if they took my daughter away from me. You know, because my ex-wife, she took my daughter away from me. And it took me, I think, 3 years, to be able to get my custody back of my daughter after I was out, which was another uphill battle. Now, my first wife, with my 2 boys, me and her are still friends, so she didn't have any problems, so I was pretty lucky there. But when I walked out of prison and I have $48,000 in back child support just from one ex-wife, and she's not willing to forgive any of it, after you've been in prison, you can't afford to pay, you don't have a job, and they don't give you the resources to go to court to help you get your child support lowered while you're in there, that's rough. I've almost got it. I've been out since 2012. Actually, I think July 16th, 2012, I walked out of there. And just now, able to get caught up on that child support. And it's tough. You know, I haven't got an income tax return. My ex-wife would rather see me dead than see me see my daughter. And it's hard on my daughter, you know, and I see it. Me and my daughter were super close before I went in. Now, just not there. She don't care if she comes over to my house anymore. She'd rather stay at her mom's and play with her friends. I've lost that. So it doesn't just affect the family that you get in a wreck with and hurt or kill. It affects your family. Everybody was in prison with me, believe it or not. They lost me. And then I've lost them since I've been out. That's not something that anybody can understand 100% unless they've been in that situation. I'd give my right arm if somebody walked out of here today and took what I had to say and it changed their life from wanting to drink and drive, get behind the wheel after being impaired. I'm not a cop. I'm not a judge. I'm not somebody that's going to come in here and preach to you guys, but you know what? I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else in here. I've been there. I've been right where you guys have sat. I come up here and speak not because I have to, it's because I want to. Because what I took away from society, if I can give back doing this, and I feel like I've contributed back to society again, because what I took away is not easy, guys. That little girl was the same age as my daughter. How can I make that family forgive me for what I did? If somebody walks out of here today and they don't get behind the wheel after having a drink, just hand off your money and your keys to somebody else and here, call me a taxi, don't let me drive. Then you know what? Y'all are going to be in a lot better shoes. I could pay for a taxi to take me back and forth to Vegas for 2 weeks. For the money I spent on my attorneys. So somebody here, lets me know when we're done with this that I made some type of impact in y'all's lives, and, you know, I feel like I've contributed back to what I've taken away. Thank you.